Hello there and welcome to episode 88 of Little Big Knits. My name is Selma. I'm your host. I'm coming to you from Ottawa, Canada, where it's cold, sunny, but cold. And I live here with my family and our cat Yoda, who was actually just beside me, but she left. And yeah, welcome to this episode. Thank you so much for all the lovely comments, the edifying comments from last episode. Super, super wonderful to read them all. And I'm glad that you enjoyed the footage of New Mexico. I have to say the footage that I put on at the end of the podcast is as much for me as it is for you, or as much for you as it is for me. I do that as well as a memory for myself. I love to go back. There was so much footage that I took in New Mexico. I tried really hard to bring it down to a reasonable length of time. So, but yeah, there was just so much, and it's going to be the same today. As you know, I just came back, or I was in Madrid and Barcelona, and I have a ridiculous amount of footage, and I'm going to try and put it in as concise a way as possible. I have a lot of lovely things as well to show you. So there's going to be a rather large acquisition section today to share with you the lovely things that came my way in Barcelona and Madrid. It was a wonderful trip, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. It was a truly wonderful trip. Also, just want to remind you that there is a Ko-fi account for this podcast, should you wish to support it in a financial way. The link is below, and the show notes are below as well. And we also have a Ravelry group where our 2 knit-alongs are taking place in the Little Big Knits Ravelry group. There are threads for the 2 knit-alongs that we have. We've got the LBK Nordic Cal, which is also on Instagram. Both are also on Instagram. You can use the hashtags, and there'll be prizes at the end of the Cal, which the Nordic Cal is going until the end of March. And there'll be prizes at the end, which will be prizes will be drawn for winners from both the Ravelry group and Instagram. We also have another make-along called the Scrappy Stashy Mal, and that is where you use up materials that you've had in your stash for a long time, or leftovers from projects that you've knit and you've ended up with an extra bit of yarn and you use it in something, or fabric as well. And it can be any kind of fiber related, really. It could be fabric, it could be yarn, but it can be sewing, knitting, weaving, crocheting, whatever, wet felting. So there you go. And that one is going until the end of the year. So it'll be finishing in about a month, as we are at the end of November right now, and Christmas and New Year's are fast approaching. What happened? Where did the year go? I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So there you go. Let's begin, shall we? I have two knitting finished objects and a little bit of stitching to show you. Let's start with what I'm wearing, as it's pretty obvious that I have finished the Sara Vest. So this is the Sara Vest, which was published by Knit Toronto, designed by Claudia Quintanilla. Came out, I think, in 2020 or 2021. So this is my second pattern that I have knit by Claudia. The other one was the Violetta tee, which you saw last episode. Or it's not a tee, actually, it's a sweater, the Violetta. And it is absolutely beautiful. Claudia tends to make very lovely feminine designs. I was very drawn to this vest, the Sara Vest, when it first came out. And so I finally made it. I'll talk quickly about the materials. This is actually a Scrappy Stashy Mal kind of project and it's also Nordic, because for the Nordic Cal, which I didn't mention, you're using Nordic patterns or Nordic yarns. So this is knit in leftover yarns from a cardigan I made last year, and it's knitting for olive, the merino, and the mohair held together in the purple artichoke colorway. a beautiful, beautiful colorway. And I had leftovers and I didn't even finish them. It's interesting. So I made this vest and it started out okay until I got to the division for the sleeves. It's knit bottom up. And so one thing, I'm not completely happy with this vest. I have to say, first of all, I struggle with length when it comes to bottom up sweaters. And I feel like this has ended up a little short and a little boxy. And I'm not 100% sure. I've got a few little things happening with this vest. So I'm just going to stand up and show that to you first before I start talking to you about the mods. I definitely made it longer than in the pattern. But I actually kind of wonder if it would have been nicer a little bit tighter. I just feel like it's come out very boxy. And should it have been just a teeny weeny bit longer? And I am contemplating maybe cutting well, I probably have to cut here because it's bottom up, unraveling and then knitting a longer ribbing and maybe even doing a split hem. So yeah, I'm not 100% happy with this vest for some reason. I was also a little frustrated while I was knitting it. It's got a lovely simple lace pattern, but when I got to the division, and I knew this was going to happen, when I got to the division, the stitch pattern did not line up. So it required a lot of finagling on my part. And I don't know, then I basically went rogue and just did the rest myself. And what I ended up doing was I ended up deciding that I would make it a little wider in the front and a little narrower in the back. Which I like actually, because I thought, well, I've got more bust, so I've got more coverage here. So I added, I don't know, maybe 6 stitches in total to the front. And I think that worked out fairly well. It meant that I had to rejig sort of like, because of course, once you get to the top, you need to have the same number of stitches. I did a little bit of short rows at the top, but you have to, this has to align with where you want the neck to go and so forth. So I think I made the neck a little bit lower than I would have actually liked. I think I would have liked it to be a little higher. But by the end of this project, by the time I put these together and I realized that this was a little lower than I really wanted, I was kind of over it, if I'm honest. And I just thought, I'm just going to finish this. It's going to be what it's going to be. If I like it, great. If I don't, maybe there's somebody in the world, in my life, who will like it. I had been looking for a blouse to go with this vest, and I'm kind of glad I never found one, because I feel like now it would have been perhaps a little bit of a waste. This is a blouse that I have in my closet that I wear a lot actually under vests and sweaters. So I've just put it on with that. It's a very pretty color, but I seem to be going through a little bit of a desire for brighter colors. It actually, I think, looks really nice on camera and brighter than I thought it would be. But yeah, I'm slightly disappointed with this. I think that not all the sizes will have the issue I had where the lace weight wouldn't line up, but that's definitely a problem in the pattern. And that's something that with this kind of a, sort of pinstripe of lace, that's something that would be noticeable if it were off. And I couldn't have done that. It would have bothered me. So yeah, I think that if I were to make this again, I would keep that in mind from the beginning. I might make the neck size down actually. And then of course I would make this a little higher, just a little bit, just about there. The Violetta pattern was very well written. This one I think had a few details that could have been improved upon, but it's a lovely, lovely vest. I love the stitch pattern on it. It's a very pretty vest. So yeah, so this I would say is a semi-success for me. It's not the sweater or the garment that I put on and went, oh yes, this is exactly, I'm gonna want to wear this all the time. My 2 Stockholm slipovers I wear a lot. You may remember I made a white one and a hot pink one last year. And I had actually looked for yarn for them, for a third one at Barcelona Knits, but I didn't find what I had in mind. I have a certain blue in my head. I always have this blue in my head and I can never find it. Maybe I will one day. But if I make another Stockholm slipover, I'd like it to be another bright color, like something just a pop of color. And I'll be talking about a pop of color a little later. So there you go. First finished object, the Sara Vest Knitting for Olive merino and mohair held together. I think I knit on 4mm needles. Can't quite recall. It stretched quite a bit in width, more than I thought it would. But yeah, I could have gone back and changed this, but I just decided that was it. Not gonna happen. The next thing I finished, and I think I told you last time that I wanted to finish this before my husband leaves for Uruguay. He leaves in a couple of days actually. And this is the Kimba vest. So I have managed to finish this and it has turned out really quite beautiful and very light and lovely. And I think my mother-in-law is going to love this. So, I mean, I would probably end up wearing it like this because I would wear it under a coat. And it's just very light actually and lovely. I've come to realize that I don't really, big shawls are great, but not so much in our winter because usually you want something that's really up close to your neck and under, at least for me, under my coat. So I think I'm going to be looking more at smaller shawls for the most part when I knit one. So, but this one I made for my mother-in-law. And I actually finished this while I was in Spain. This was one of the projects that I took along and remembered to take along because I forgot a project. I can't believe I did that. So the other project you'll see that I forgot doesn't have as much progress on it. But yeah, so this was knit out of 3 yarns. 2 were by a Finnish dyer called Lohitaren Luola. This fabulous turquoise and the next sort of more tealy color. And then the last dark blue, let's see if I can get this on here. There you go. The last dark blue is from Woolly Knit. It's a British wool and it's much more of a woolly wool than these ones. This is a 50 merino, 50 silk, and this one is a pure wool. So a little bit of a difference in the texture, but it really doesn't matter. I used almost all of this bright turquoise, but the teal did not use as much because it faded into the dark blue sooner than I thought it would. So I still have quite a bit of the teal. And I made the small size. There's another larger size. The shawl is interesting in that it started with short rows. You cast on a rather large amount of stitches and then you do a whole series of short rows. I talked about this last time, that I did my short rows a little bit more spaced apart than she had in there. And it's interesting, it sort of creates it's got a little bit of a bulbousness to it that I wasn't expecting. But I don't think you notice it when you're wearing it, whether you're wearing it around your neck or you're wearing it like this, it won't be noticeable at all. That's quite lovely actually. Yeah, I love the design. I would definitely make it again. I think the idea of adding short rows like this to a pattern is kind of interesting, but it's just got a little bit of a curve like that. And I blocked it quite aggressively, but it never came out. But an interesting way of creating volume in a shawl this way. Rather than increasing stitches, you're doing short rows, because most shawls, a traditional way would be to start with a small amount and you just keep increasing as you go along. And she did it this way. And so it was really interesting. I'm glad I did it. I would definitely knit this again. It was a pleasurable knit. I was never able to let go of the pattern. I had to look at what was going on every row, because once you did start increasing towards the end, you know, it changed things. But I ended up being a couple of stitches off, and I was able to finagle and figure out, you know, how to do it every time. But I always had to figure out where I was in the pattern, so I was checking off rows as I went along. Lovely, lovely, and I hope she enjoys it. I just have to remember to take pictures of it before it goes off to Uruguay, because this shawl has been to Spain and now it's going off to Uruguay. It's going to be fluently Spanish speaking by the end of its lifetime, or the end of its trip even. And you can even see that here, that it goes out like that. But despite that, which I find a little bit, it was just a little, what's the word? I couldn't quite, I wasn't sure if I liked the fact that it went out like that. And in terms of wearing, I don't think it really matters. But it's really lovely. So yeah, lovely knit. And the yarn, the Lohitarenluola, the Finnish yarn, was given to me by my friend Minna in Finland. She's known as Finfrost on Instagram, and we met when I was in Finland, but we had done a little swap, and this is one of the things she sent me. So and she recently knit with the yarn I had sent her, so this is great. So lovely, lovely, lovely. And I think that's all I have to say about that. I have one more stitching thing that I want to show you, and that is on an old pair of jeans. Well, they're not actually that old, but I've worn these a lot, and they wore out in the bum area. And so my stitching project, this was before I went to Spain, I was wanting to fix the hole that was on the bottom. There was a, you know, fraying of fabric here, and I was really struggling to get the fabric under there because I put a very thin piece, and I haven't cut it back yet, but I put a thin piece of, what do you call the chambray that my friend had. She goes, this would be a good color. So I was like, okay, yeah, that works. And I didn't want to put something really thick because it's actually kind of a thin jean material. And I was really struggling to start it. And so I ended up using a little hoop. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go in a circle. And although I could call this a finished object right now in the sense that I've already worn these, I do think I'm going to be doing a little bit more stitching on this. And the fabric on the other side is also fraying. And the way that these sit, they're wrinkled because they were, you really don't see it a lot. Like it shows up just a little bit. So I wear these jeans all the time, so I expect that they're going to need more mending, and I think these are going to be my visible mended jeans over time. I think it's going to be fun to experiment with boro and other visible mending on here. And boro is a Japanese technique of sort of like more freehand stitching, where sashiko tends to be very, very exact. Boro is very sort of spontaneous. You use bits of fabric. It's really interesting. It's used a lot from visible mending as well. So I think that these jeans will continue to get worked on, but I started with that, and I used a dark blue sashiko thread that I had gotten from somewhere, and the hole is not like perfectly covered yet. I didn't bother cutting it. I just thought, oh, we're just gonna go with it and see what happens as a first time doing something like that. So those are my finished objects. Let's move on to some whips. There's a little bit of cat butt. Hey Yoda, do you want to come say hi? I think she's sort of perturbed because it's cold. Hey Yo-Yo. Yoda, hey, are you kind of perturbed? Anyway, now she's like, what are you talking to me for? Go back to your business. All right, so let's talk about works in progress. I'll talk first about this one. This is the one that got forgotten. My poor project that got forgotten. That is in this bag. I showed this to you last time. I'm so happy with this bag. This is my stitching project, and I just sort of doodled and came up with this design and turned it into a bag. Did it on some denim. And in here is the Granite Cardigan. I showed it to you last time. And I ended up forgetting this. I got to the airport, I had gone through security, and suddenly I was like, oh, where's the cardigan? I realized it's in the car. So this didn't get knit on. So I don't have quite as much progress to show you on this as I might have otherwise. But this is the Granite Cardigan by Katrin Lindhagen, a Nordic designer. So this fits into the Nordic cal as well. And it's in this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful colored yarn, light blue, gray blue yarn. So it's a really simple V-neck, top-down cardigan that I am enjoying making. I mean, the one thing is that I'm finding, because it's back and forth, I don't think I've done this much purling in a long time. I have gotten sort of out of practice with doing that much purling, but I'm going along. So when I left it, I had just divided for the body and the sleeves. So I've knit this much since I got home, less than a week ago. Yeah. So this is using yarn from Your Next Knit. Smita very generously sent me this yarn. It's just beautiful. This is the Erica Knight British Blue 100. It's 100% blue face Leicester. And it is just a gorgeous, gorgeous, crispy, lovely yarn. And my friend Antoine was knitting with it, and I just fell in love with it. And so I could see that Smita had some, but not in this colorway. And she generously ordered it for me and sent it to me. So thank you so much for that, Smita. She's also offered viewers of the podcast a 15% discount on her shop. So if you are interested, please go to Your Next Knit, check out what she's got, and you can use the code SELMA15 for a discount. And suddenly I've gotten very hot. Yeah, you can use SELMA15 and get a 15% discount from her shop on any of the items. And this is just stunning. So not a whole lot to say about this at this point. I'm just going down the body, and we'll see what happens next. All right, so that was the lovely, lovely Granite Cardigan, and just enjoying that. It's funny because I often put some Tuft hand cream on my hands before knitting, so the cardigan smells like the hand cream, which is really lovely. So that is that. In here, another bag that I made actually is a project that I started just before leaving. I cast this project on because I wanted to honor two friends that I was going to be seeing in Barcelona. One is a designer and the other one is a yarn dyer and a designer. So I wanted to use up some yarns from Cami Jo Yarns, because she had very kindly sent me a care package in the spring or early summer when I had hurt my wrist. And so this was yarn from, oh, look at that. Is that beautiful or what? This is yarn that she sent me. It is her sock base in the pale lilac color. And the pattern is the Plumage Socks by Annina Juti, or Anni Juti Knits on Instagram. And this was a recently released pattern, and I wanted to make it because it's so incredibly pretty. And so I started these, and obviously I knit on the Kimba Shawl and these socks way more than I probably would have had I brought the Granite Cardigan. So I finished a sock and I'm halfway through the second sock. But this is a really beautiful, beautiful sock pattern. I would not put this, give this pattern to a beginner because it's got some interesting techniques in it that you have to get used to. And then once you do, you just go. So the first thing that's really interesting is that it starts with a slip stitch toe. And we're used to seeing slip stitches in the heel, but here she has put one in the toe. So the beginning of the sock is a little complicated until you get the rhythm of it, but then it's fabulous. And then the stitch pattern, which is just beautiful, has two kind of slightly unusual techniques. And it took me a moment to understand it. And then when I did, it was like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. And I didn't have to look at the pattern anymore. I got into it right away and memorized it immediately. And it's just actually lovely. And then it's got, it's a toe up sock, but it's got a lovely slip stitch heel flap type of heel with a gusset. And it just creates a very pretty sock. And then it's got an interesting detail on the back. Let's see, I just started the back of this one, where there's a little bit of ribbing up the back of the sock as well that goes in line with the slip stitch heel. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So I was so happy to be able to make these socks in Camilla's yarn. Because I saw both of them. We spent the weekend together in Barcelona. Unfortunately, I spilled a teeny weeny bit of coffee on this and the plane when I was coming back. So I think it won't matter. It's barely noticeable really. And then once they get washed, it'll diminish a little bit more. So yeah, so a lovely, lovely, lovely sock. And I really, I put this on. I'm curious to feel what it's like to wear socks with a toe like this in my boot, but it's really cozy. I really like it, and I thought I'm definitely going to be doing this again because it's really quite wonderful. And it looks nice because it really echoes the back of the sock as well as does this, you know, there's a lot of harmony in the design. So really beautiful design. And really beautiful yarn. So that is whip number 2, and I have a last whip, which is actually a new cast on. I'm just gonna have a sip of tea though. Today's mug. Today's mug is from Carolyn Harris. She's a Canadian potter out, I believe, in BC. Her work is absolutely, absolutely stunning. I just love her work, and I follow her on Instagram, and it's really hard not to buy every single mug from her because they're just so gorgeous. Love, 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 love her work. So I'll leave her link down below as well, should you want to check it out. So in this next bag, which is by Antler and Acorn, she's out of the UK, and I got this Harrisville tweed bag, not Harrisville, Harris tweed, sorry, bag. When did I get this? 2 or 3 years ago. It was sort of a Christmas gift to myself. I have a new cast on. And for this cast on, I am using, this is Holst Super Soft, Holst Garn Super Soft in the Thistledown colorway, and I'm using this beautiful mohair silk that I got in Madrid. Actually, it was one of my purchases, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it later when I'll talk about the shop a little later. It's from My Knitted Closet, and I'm putting these two together. So I am knitting the Coorie In Poncho by Amy Palko. Pattern is not out yet. It will be very shortly. It may be already actually by the time this goes up. And it's a poncho that Amy made for herself on her podcast a couple of episodes ago. And I fell in love with it right away. I was like, that's exactly what I need. I have the yarn. Well, I had the, I knew that I would use this Holst Super Soft for it. She used Holst Super Soft in her first one, and I thought I'd just get some mohair to go with that to make a poncho, because I've actually been wanting one. I had made one a few years ago for one of my children, and it's in bright colors, and I don't think I'd want to wear that on a daily basis. And I had just kind of made it up off the top of my head, but I wanted to support Amy, but I was also intrigued by her use of short rows in this pattern. So I asked her if she was doing a test, and she said, well, if you would read through the pattern, that would be great. And so she sent it to me, and I've started knitting on it, and I can't stop. Like I started this 3 nights ago and I just can't stop knitting on it. I try and make sure that I give some love to my other 2 projects, but I'm really enjoying this and really looking forward to it. I have to say I'm finding the combination rather scratchy. I'm sure you've heard other people talk about or have your own experience with the whole super soft, that it can be kind of ropey. It's really not soft, but apparently soaking it afterwards does wonders and it fluffs up and gets much softer. So this doesn't have to be very soft. It's a poncho. It's going to go over something else. But I was like, ooh, this is scratchy. She had made her collar longer. I made mine a little shorter. And this is being knit on 5mm needles. So it's got a nice, loose-ish gauge. And I think it's just going to be a lovely, lovely thing to wear. I soon am going to have to put it on a longer cable as I move down the body. But I would imagine that this will be finished for next episode because I'm just enjoying knitting it so much. So yeah. So that is work in progress number 3. And the end of my knitting. I'm going to share with you a couple of patterns that have come into my life as well, and then talk about the yarn shops and Barcelona Knits. And then I will leave you with a footage from Madrid and Barcelona of the cities themselves. So that's what's coming up next. So speaking of UKnit Toronto, Claudia Quintanilla came out with a new design recently called the Caramelo, which is just a lovely, simple, cozy sweater for the winter season. Like you can just see this being worn here. I'll put it over here. You can see this being worn with, leggings or jeans for just a super casual look. Really, really lovely. And they've actually given viewers of the podcast a code. You use Selma Caramelo, or was it Caramelo Selma? I think it's Selma Caramelo, but I'll put it down here. If you use that code, you'll get 50% off the pattern until the end of day on the 28th of November. So it's a short code. The Violetta pattern, which was the one that I showed you last time, they are doing a knit along for that sweater and have also offered viewers using the code Selma Violetta 50% off of that pattern, and I think that goes until January. So feel free to use those if you're interested in either of those patterns. The Caramelo is a lovely, simple, cozy design, and the Violetta is, well, depending on how you make it, it could also be just a cozy design, but I found mine to be, it's like pretty. I'm looking forward to wearing it to the office or to out, it's just really pretty. The other patterns that came into my life, one of them was a gift from the designer. Her name is Jen Scott, and she shared this shawl called A Parade of Minis. And this is a lovely shawl that you could use your Advent projects with, yarns with, or leftovers. It calls for one solid color, one main skein, and then a series of 20-gram skeins. Or was it? Yeah, I think so, but you could use more than that if you liked, to create the sort of asymmetrical shawl. I really love the shape of the shawl. Actually, I'd very much like to make it. So I think it would be a really lovely thing to wear. So thank you very much for that, Jen. And then the last one I got was the Giselle hat. So this is a pattern by Camilla Hoyer Adamson, also known as Cami Jo, the yarn dyer and designer. And it is a 2-layer hat. So it's got some DK, and I got myself some yarn, I'll show it to you in a little bit, at the Barcelona Festival for the bottom layer. And I actually thought about using this mohair that I just showed you as the top layer for it. But we'll see, because I'm not sure I'll have any of this left. If not, I'll find another mohair for it. But it's got a bottom layer that is a DK weight, and then you continue knitting the lace on the top. So you basically start at the top, go down in the DK, and then continue on and diminish in the lace. And so it ends up being a 2-layer hat. And I'm really looking forward to making this. I think it's going to be lovely. So yeah, those are the patterns. All right, I got to get myself slightly organized because I have to say I came home with a lot of yarn. So who's got to gird their loins, me or you? I don't know, but I'll be back in a second. Okay, let's start with Madrid. Now, I just came back from Madrid and Barcelona, and I went primarily to visit my son. That was the pretext of the trip, because he went to study in Madrid for this term, for the fall term, and he'll be back at Concordia in January. And so I lived in Madrid from 1990 to 94. In fact, first I had gone there in second year university in 88, which may be aging me. I had gone as a program, like a study abroad term as well. It was an organized term. There was a whole group of us, and my friend Paul was on that trip. And then I moved to Madrid. I knew as soon as I arrived in Madrid in 88, I said, I'll be back. I just knew that I was going to go back. So when I finished university, I ended up going back thinking I would stay for a year, but I stayed for 4 years. And then eventually came home. My friend Paul came to visit me at one point, and we had mutual friends there. So he ended up coming to Madrid with me, and we just had a wonderful, wonderful time. But in that time, I did go to some yarn shops. The first yarn shop that I went to was Miss Kit's, and I didn't actually get any footage in this shop, but you can see the window of the shop. And they have in their shop a yarn by a Spanish company, and this yarn is made in Spain, called Casa Sol. Here is their tag. And I've actually ended up with 2 yarns from them, but in that shop I bought this, what would you call this? Kind of bluey pinky yarn, which is 100% cotton, and it is a cobweb. It's a very, very thin, thin, thin one. And I bought 2 of these, thinking that I would double strand them with something. And they were incredibly reasonably priced. I think they were €3 each. I hadn't really intended to buy a lot, and many of their yarns were things I could buy elsewhere. But I was intrigued by this, so I bought 2 of these. Not with much of a plan, but I since have come up with a plan. So that was Miss Kit's, and I went there before I was going to meet up with a woman named Lilian, who's Lilita Madrid on Instagram. We had been chatting a bit. She's originally from Uruguay. My husband's from Uruguay, and we have just chatted here and there. So we had organized to meet at another shop called My Knitted Closet. And it wasn't too far from Miss Kit's, actually, so I ended up walking there. It was about a half an hour walk from one shop to the other, and Lillian and I met. And in My Knitted Closet, which used to have a different name, I can't remember what it was at this point, they have their own line of yarns. They have different ones. They have a cotton merino, they have a mohair, they have, I think, 5 or 6 different yarns. I ended up getting this beautiful mohair. And this is the mohair that's being knitted in the poncho. Just so you know, I'm going to put footage as I'm talking, just because it's going to make it easier for me at the end. But I got this thinking that I would pair it with this and make a ranunculus vest, like not as a sweater, but as a vest with these 2 colors. However, oh, there she is again. When I started swatching, it was kind of more of this type of color, and I thought, no, if I'm gonna have that kind of a vest, I think I want something bright. And so I decided to not do this anymore, and this is actually now going into the poncho instead. But they had lovely colors, not a huge selection of colors, but lovely. And this is a mohair silk blend. Did they say what it is? 25% silk and 75% mohair. So this is what I got from my knitted closet, along with this book. This is a book that is a collaboration between Rowan Yarns and Lucia Ruiz de Aguirre Rodriguez. Now there's a name for you. And she is a designer, and I bought this because I fell in love with two designs in here in particular. One being this jacket, but there are other really lovely designs in here as well, but I really love that jacket, and I really like this vest, which uses 3 colors, and I just really liked that and thought it could be a great stash buster as well. And then here's the cardigan in a different color. And they're using Rowan yarns, which I have some of, but so sort of a DK weight. But there are other patterns in here as well. There's a lovely, very simple cardigan. It's got a little bit of a stitch pattern on it. And this was a book that I thought I wouldn't be able to find this book in Canada so easily. So I thought it would be a lovely purchase. There's also this very simple sweater with a little stitch pattern on here. There's a shawl, there's a pillow, there's some different things in here. There's a bag that I really like. It's actually another cardigan that's quite interesting, that uses a little bit of color work in it, just a tiny little bit. I wanted to show you the bag because I really like the bag as well. I really like the stitch pattern on the bag, but the bag is being elusive right now. Here it is. It's just got a beautiful stitch pattern. I thought you could even just turn that into a pillow. It would be really beautiful. So this was something else that I got from there, and really enjoyed that. Liliane gave me a lovely gift when we met up with this bag, which says Madrid Knits. And they seem to have a lovely knitting community in Madrid, which is great. She gave me some needle stoppers from my knitted closet, which is where we met up, and then we went for coffee afterwards. But she also gave me 2 skeins of yarn that I then saw, oops, this one's unraveled, that I then saw at Barcelona Knits, and it's by Enkai Yarns. It's a beautiful combination of baby alpaca, linen, and silk. So this is luxurious and rich, and I'm not 100% sure what I would do with it. I'm gonna have to think a little bit about this, but I think it would make a stunning shawl or something that would have drape to it, because this is about as drapey a yarn as one could get. It's just stunning. And yeah, it's a hand-dyed yarn by a Spanish dyer. So thank you very much for that, Liliane. And we just had a lovely time. We went for coffee and it was wonderful. The other yarn shop I actually happened upon as I was walking down a street. And that was We Are Knitters. I did not know that they had, first of all, I don't think I knew they were Spanish. And secondly, I didn't know that they had a storefront. I think the storefront is actually quite new. And I ended up going there twice, once on my own and then once with Paul. Paul and Antoine are both knitters. So we ended up going there, and I wasn't able to buy more yarn. So in We Are Knitters, which you've seen footage of, it's lovely. It's a small, but I would say mighty shop, got a lot of really lovely bases of theirs. I ended up buying a sweater quantity of this bling bling yarn, the bling bling yarn, which is a 79 superwash merino, 18% mohair, and 3% lurex. So it's got a little bit of shine going through it, a little bit of that sparkle. And so I got enough for a sweater, thinking that I might just make a loose cardigan or something. And then they also gave me, if you bought a certain amount, you also got something free. They gave me 2 balls of their Happy Chain yarn, which is a worsted weight chain net yarn. So we'll see what ends up becoming of this. I was actually thinking about a second Sophie scarf, because I actually find my Sophie scarf to be very useful. I brought it to Spain and I used it when it was a little cold. And it's just small, it doesn't take up a lot of space, but it's a nice bit of warmth around your neck. So we'll see, this might become that, but there's more of it, so perhaps it would become something a little bigger, perhaps it would go into a sweater. I actually thought that these yarns went very nicely together, but they're totally different weights, so I'm not sure that would happen, but I thought, maybe there'll be leftovers, maybe I can get creative, we'll see what happens. But I fell in love with this yarn and had to come home with it. So that is my Madrid haul. Let's move on to the Barcelona haul. And then there was Barcelona. I feel like I had 3 separate trips. I had Madrid, I had Barcelona, and then I had Barcelona Knits. They were 3 very different chapters of that trip. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about Barcelona later, even though it happened before Barcelona Knits. But to talk about the yarns, I need to talk about Barcelona Knits first. So on the Friday of the festival, I was meeting up with, well, we were going to gather together Lisa and so on, Ivana of The Republic and Me, Camilla of Cami Jo Knits, and Annina of Anni Yuti Knits. And some of us were going to be staying in the same hotel, not all of us. Lisa actually lives outside of Barcelona. So I actually met up with Ivana of The Republic and Me Friday morning, because I was changing from an Airbnb to the hotel, and we'd been connecting, and I said, look, why don't we have a coffee? So we met up with her and Mario, her husband, and Ivana bestowed on me this most beautiful gift. The whole family loves this. It's a struggle to keep it just for myself. I don't necessarily have to, but if you know Ivana and her work on her YouTube channel, The Republic of Me, she is a very good weaver and spinner. She spins yarn and she weaves as well as knits. And she's very much an artist. And she made this beautiful wrap for me, which is just absolutely glorious. But not only did she weave the wrap, but she also spun the yarns that are part of the weft. So the horizontal yarns, the warp yarns are commercial yarns, she said, but the others are her own spinning. And it's just absolutely, absolutely stunning. And I just love the colors, and it's just beautiful. So I have to say, I came home and everybody in the house was like, wow, that is stunning. And then Yoda today was like, I think I'd like to sleep on here. In fact, I took a little video of Yoda on the shawl. Yeah, it's just absolutely, absolutely beautiful, and a real gift. So thank you so much, Ivana. It was just, the whole weekend was magical. I'm going to tell you, it was just such a joy to meet people that I've been chatting with, that, you know, I've connected with. Annina, if you've been around, you'll know when I went to Finland in the spring that Annina and I got together along with Jana from Kettu Yarns or my Finnish knitting stories. So we had gotten together then. So I'd met Annina before, but we just had a fabulous time. She and I shared a hotel room this time. It was like being with people that you've known your whole life. It was amazing. And it was just so special to spend time with these women and their lovely husbands, by the way, in case Mario and Lars are there. They were great. They were absolutely a fun to have along with us, and very patient with our yarny shenanigans. So yeah, so I am going to treasure this. It's going to be, I've been wearing it all week because it's actually been quite cool, and I had to adjust to being cold. So I've had this around my shoulders or on my legs while working at the dining room table. Annina had made this little pouch out of cork for me, which I forgot to put on Instagram. because it was somewhere else when I took my videos for Instagram, with some lovely, lovely stitch markers from Cindy Ekman. They're made in Finland, and they're really beautiful. Beautiful. One of them is, well, actually 2 of them are progress keepers and 2 of them are stitch markers. So thank you so much for that. And then Camilla, as a yarn dyer, never arrives without yarn. So if you know Camilla's work, you will know that she does a Bird of the Month club. And she chooses birds, Danish birds, because that's where she's from and where she lives. And she creates a yarn to go with those birds. And so this was for, I believe it's the robin, which looks different from our robin. It looks like it's smaller and it has a smaller tuft of orange on it. And so she brought all of us a skein of this with 2 minis, and it's just beautiful. So beautiful. Camilla's a very talented dyer. I love her work, and her color sense is just amazing. And this all goes rather nicely together. This was a very inspired project. I feel her working with the birds and the challenge of finding a Danish bird and then creating a yarn around it. I really loved that and watching it every month. So it's a very rich, beautiful, beautiful light brown with orange specks in it. So then I met a lot of viewers. Before that, during the festival, Lisa actually bought me 2 of these, and I ended up going back and getting a 3rd one because I have an idea for it. This is also Casasol, but this is a non-mulesed wool in their fingering base. It's a Shetland, very similar to the woolly knit from the UK. I really wondered if it was milled there. It says made in Spain, but it just has a very similar feel to the other yarn, looks very similar, but it's a lovely, lovely rich ochre color. And I'll show you the yarn that I think I'm going to put with it. So I'm getting hot now. And then met viewers. I'm not going to say all your names because honestly, I can't remember. Met so many people, but got these wonderful stitch markers from Karen and her daughter. That was really lovely. And my goodness, another lovely stitch marker from another woman who stopped very briefly, said hello. And this one, I think this was from Constanza. Is that right? Anyway, I met a bunch of people. Although I came home with a rather large amount of yarn, I have to say that going to festivals and meeting people and saying hello to people that I want to say hello to, that I wanted to meet, or people that are coming to say hello because they're viewers of the podcast, or we've chatted on Instagram, that is just the bee's knees for me. I have to say, I love that. Every time I do this, I think I should take a notebook and write people's names down because I won't remember at all. And that's what happens. So I'm sorry if I've forgotten people's names. There were a lot of people who came up and said hello. So thank you so much, because that's the best part for me. Coming home with yarn is awesome, but meeting people, spending time with people is really the best. So spending the weekend with these lovely knitting friends and then meeting viewers as well, and it was just absolutely great. So thank you to those of you who I was able to say hello to. There was also another gift here from Karen, who we've been chatting for a while. I think we've followed each other's work for a while. She's a wonderful test knitter and sweater maker. And she brought me this interesting yarn from the Netherlands called Bad Katu yarn, which is a slubby yarn. So I think this is going to become like a fun shawl. That's what I feel like this is going to become. So, yeah, and there were just a cute little sheep pin in here as well. So So thank you to all of you for whether you bestowed gifts upon me or just said hello. It was absolutely the best. The best to meet people. It was just great. So some of us ended up going out on the Friday night, but we were up bright and early on the Saturday getting ourselves ready to go to the festival. And it was really a wonderful, wonderful festival. I'll put some footage here as I talk about it. It takes place in 2 rooms, essentially. And there's a sort of an outdoor central courtyard, although the courtyard was under construction. But the lineups were pretty crazy on the Saturday morning to get in. Lots and lots of people. Sunday was a much easier, it was a lot easier to get in. But there were just lots of vendors, obviously lots of vendors from Spain, but there were also a few vendors from other countries, such as Italy and Poland and Hungary, and some from actually from Argentina and Uruguay. There was a button maker from France who I bought buttons from. So it was just a really wonderful mixture of European yarns, and a real joy. So, what did I buy first? This is the question. What did I buy first? The first thing I bought was this crazy pink mohair. And the reason I bought this was to pair with this. And so I was going to cast this on right away, but then I got taken away to the poncho land. And so when I finished the poncho, or perhaps when I finished the socks, I'll be casting on a ranunculus. I'll be using 2 strands of this and possibly 2 strands of this. I'm gonna have to swatch, and I'm just going to make a little short sleeved one that will be more like a vest than anything. To wear under with a white blouse, for example, or another. It's also a bright pink, and I made a bright pink one last year, but they're very different pinks. Am I just justifying here, or are they really very different pinks? They are very different pinks. And this will be a ranunculus, it'll be different. And so I'm really looking forward to that. So these will probably become something quite soon. So this was the first thing that I got. And this is hand-dyed yarn by 7 Oczek. I'm not 100% sure how to make that, how to say that. She had, or they, I'm not 100% sure, but they had beautiful yarns, some really nice yak yarns, but there were no colors in the yak yarn that I felt were really speaking to me. But I had thought about buying a skein of the yak yarn just to make a little something, but I ended up buying these 2 instead because I felt like they matched the pink from the Casa Sol really well. So that was my first purchase. And actually on the first day there, on the Saturday, I think this is the only thing I bought. And this is something, is that the case? Anyway, this is something that I find tends to happen to me, is that often on the first day, I don't buy much. I knew I wanted this. And I knew I wanted a navy blue DK for the Giselle hat. But I often find I just need to really look around, and then the stuff that I'm still thinking about later is what I go back to. And so here's what I went back to. So this button, she wraps her stuff. I'm going to show you how she wrapped the buttons. I went to this button lady multiple times because her work was so beautiful. Anita bought some buttons from her, and then I bought some buttons, and I went back to get some as a gift. Her name is Camélia, her company name, and she just makes the most beautiful, beautiful buttons. So I bought these 6 buttons, and these are, I didn't have the yarn with me, or did I? I brought the skein with me, actually, the skein, and these are going to go on this cardigan here. I had a skein of yarn with me because I had intended to bring this project. So I had actually the cake of yarn with me. So I brought it to the festival the second day and got these buttons to go with it. I thought, perfect, I know I need 6 buttons. They need to be 2.5 centimeters or an inch. And so I decided that these were going to be the buttons for this project. They are made out of clay, and I'm going to be curious to see how they last with this. 2 yarns that I had seen on at the first that really I was drawn to were these ones. I bought 4 of these. This is a sport weight base. It's a 85% merino, 15% yak by Dark Omen. And there was quite a hilarious thing going on because I could never remember the name. I called it Dark Arts, I called it Evil Yarns. I could not seem to remember the name of this poor person's company. But Dark Omen Yarns, I eventually got, is run by Francesco, who is from Italy. Lovely, lovely individual. And his colors were so stunning. And so I ended up getting this beautiful, beautiful sort of gray, blue, tealy color. He was selling out, and this was on the second day. So this was one of the yarns that was left that I just thought was absolutely stunning. So I have been thinking potentially the Ilia for this. We'll have to see. But when I was trying to decide what to make and had shown you guys some potential projects to make with the light blue yarn that I'm making the Granite Cardigan out of, there were a lot of votes for the Ilia, which was one of the potentials. So I might end up making the Ilia out of this. But another yarn that I got was and it was right next to Dark Omen, was by Shoya. I think they're called Shoya or Sholla. Shoya or Sholla. It's a Spanish company, and they are using a non-superwash fingering that is made in Spain, and this is the Pastoretta base, and it's just a beautiful kind of indigo blue, just stunning, really beautiful. So I also thought maybe this could become the Ilia, or should this become the Ilia? But I couldn't leave this behind, so I've gotten a sweater quantity of this as well. The yardage, I think this is going to be a yarn that is going to bloom a lot. It seems to be, it's a very light, it looks like it's sort of a woolen spun yarn, and there are 200 meters or 220 yards essentially to this. And then I had shown you, where did it go? Oh, here it is. I had shown you this yarn that Lisa had gotten for me, and there's a pattern that I saw at the festival. I believe it's called the Tandy by Justina Lorkowska. I'd never seen this pattern before, but they had it in the Laviandole booth, and the woman had it on, and I went over, I'm like, what are you wearing? I love this. And I don't think that I would have found it that interesting had I seen it just in the picture on Ravelry, but the real life one was just really lovely. And so I had just received this, and I thought, I think I would like to do that with pink stripes. And so I got this pink for the stripes. This one, you know, it's the Casa Sol. This is actually Uruguayan yarn, and it turned out that they watched the podcast. So, hola, if you're there. And this is made in Uruguay. It's called the Uruguayan wool yarn, and it's UY. This is a fingering base that is worsted. It's color 207, I believe. And it's just this beautiful salmon pink, because I thought a salmon pink would look really good with that. And I won't need a lot. I thought I may be able to look through my stash, but I just decided to support them and get it. So yeah, so I think this is going to become a tandy. I just thought that's a really interesting top, and it could be one of those things that just looks great with a pair of jeans and a pair of boots kind of thing. And seeing it in real life was really beautiful. And then I think the last thing that I got was from Feliz y Punto, who are a well-known Spanish dyer, and their table was stunning. Really, really beautiful table of yarns, very harmonious, just gorgeous. And they had this alpaca, silk, and cashmere blend called Dark Midnight. And this was about the only one. I was really looking for a navy blue. It had to be DK that would work for the hat. So I'm curious to try this for the hat. And I believe that Camilla said that her base was also a similar kind of base that she had used on her hat. I don't remember exactly what it was. So yeah, so this is going to become a hat with some sort of light pink or purple mohair on top for the lace part with the Giselle hat. And I think that's it. I think that was plenty. That was a lot. Saturday evening, after a full day of the festival, all of us went out and had a super duper fun evening. And we also met up with Anastasia from Free Your Sheep. She was with another group of people, and so we ended up being together at a restaurant, and then she came up for drinks with us after, and we just had a fabulous evening with lots of merriment. And Sunday morning, woke up, went back to the festival briefly, but then also went to the Sagrada Familia, which you'll see footage of at the end. And had a quiet Sunday dinner with a few of us. Lisa had left already to go back to Sitges, where she lives, and said our farewells. It was just, I don't even know if I could do it justice. Honestly, it was a really, really lovely, lovely weekend, and I think we all felt like we had been friends forever. It was just beautiful. So yeah. So just briefly about Madrid and Barcelona, and then I will leave you with footage from the two cities. As I said, I went to Barcelona with my friend Paul, and we spent some time with my son. We also spent some time with my friend Anna, or our friend Anna and her boyfriend, and we met up with another friend, Patricia, and it was a real trip about nostalgia for us, I would have to say, because I lived in Spain, as I said, until 94. That's almost 30 years ago. And it was just wonderful to walk through the streets and to see the places again. I went and saw the last place that I lived, which is actually like a 5-minute walk from where my son lives now. And I couldn't remember exactly where it was. I remembered about where it was, but I couldn't remember exactly which street. And my friend Anna remembered amazingly. And I didn't have it written down anywhere else. I remembered my 2 other apartments and where they were, the street names. And so we went there. We went to a jazz bar that we went to in 1988 that is still open, and they still have shows. So we ended up going to see a fabulous, really interesting jazz performance there by a group. What were they called? I'm going to put the name down here. Really interesting new jazz group. And this place, which was called the El Despertar, or not the El Despertar, which was called El Despertar, is just a beautiful, very Art Nouveau looking jazz bar. and it used to be owned by the current owner's father. So he gave the bar to his daughter, who's now running it. And and we remembered him. She showed us a picture of him and remembered him. So it was just full of nostalgia and just exploring Madrid and seeing the city again, which has changed actually a lot. Madrid has been really cleaned up. When I lived there, most of the main buildings were gray. Now they were cleaned up in white. Like Cibeles, which is the main post office, or was the main post office. I don't even know if it's active as a post office anymore. But it was just beautiful. Gran Via was just all cleaned up. Generally, I would say the city was cleaner. The city was also busier than it used to be. There were just people all the time in the streets. And it was just an absolute delight to be there. We also met up with our old professor who had accompanied us on the trip to Spain in '88. He's now quite elderly, but it was really lovely to see him. So Madrid was very, very much about nostalgia. It was so wonderful to be there again. And then I left Madrid. My friend Paul went home, and I met up with another friend in Barcelona, and she was with me from the Sunday to the Friday morning. And then the Friday, I met up with the Barcelona Knits people. And we just explored Barcelona. I had never been there. I really wanted to see the sights. We didn't end up going inside the Sagrada Familia with her. I ended up going later with Annina. But we went to Parque Güell. We went to into one of, we didn't go inside Casa Milà and Casa, or is it Milà or Casa Batlló, but we went into the Casa Vincennes, which was Gaudi's first, first design for another person, first house that he built for someone. And it was stunning. So you'll see that. You'll see the other ones from outside, but we also went into the Güell Castle. So Güell, he was a marquis, I believe, in Barcelona. So Parque Güell is named after him, and Gaudí had some features in that park, but also was involved in the design for the palace, the Palau Güell. And so we went into that one as well. So we didn't go into the other two, but we went into these sort of, these other two. I think next time, if I go to Barcelona again, then I would like to go into the Casa Batlló for sure. But they're actually really expensive to get into, like really expensive. So we sort of picked and chose, and my friend Liz really wanted to go to the Parque Güell, so I was like, let's do it. We also went to another park, de Horta, I think it was called, that's a little bit outside of the center, but it was a quick metro ride, and there's a lovely maze there, and it was a summer home for somebody at some point, and now belongs to the city. And that was just really lovely. It was a very beautiful gardens and lovely sort of placement of statues and things like that. And yeah, just explored the city, really, really loved seeing the sights. Went down to the beach as well one day and walked around the Gothic quarters. It was really lovely. I loved Barcelona very, very much. I really enjoyed the city. I love the fact that you have the ocean, but you also have the hills. So it's a city that has quite a bit of nature around it, which interestingly was one of the reasons I left Madrid in '94. I missed being close to the ground. There's less greenery in a city like Madrid. It's large, it goes on and on and on. You have to go quite far to be close to nature. Whereas in Ottawa, for example, we're sort of surrounded by it. And I think I missed that. And I think Barcelona has some of that. I also, on the Friday, I went to the Picasso Museum, but then later I went to visit Lisa in Sitges. So you'll see some footage from Sitges as well. This is a town about a 40-minute train ride outside of Barcelona. And it's a lovely town, I must say. Really lovely. Beautiful by the water, lovely little white houses, beautiful little streets. And like many places in Madrid, even though it's a small town, it's full of life. So it was lovely to visit that as well. Just a glorious trip. What can I tell you? I feel like this year I've had 3 very special trips, and I'm finishing off this year in quietness, and I think just reflecting on this year and what it was. So you'll hear a little bit more about that in future podcasts, because my word for this year was strength. If you were around at the beginning, you may recall that. And so I need to reflect on that and what that meant for me and how this year went. But it's been, the 3 trips that I did this year were absolutely, really, truly wonderful trips. So it's a wonderful way to finish the year. So yeah, so really great. And I'm going to leave you with footage from that. And I guess I'll probably see you in about 3 weeks. We will be into mid-December. I may be going to Toronto on the weekend of the 9th of December. I have to figure out if I can work it, because there is an event happening at UNIT Toronto and they've invited me. So I will announce it. Maybe I'll do a little post here on YouTube and on Instagram if I am going. And if you're in the area and want to come say hello, please do. I love meeting you. And yeah, and otherwise I'll probably see you some point in mid-December. I don't have huge Christmas knitting plans this year. I don't have huge Advent plans this year. I'm going to do a little bit of sock knitting probably. I would really like to make a gnome. And I think that's my one goal in December, is to make a knitted gnome. So hopefully that'll be on its way the next time I podcast. And I have some sock yarn here. It's just right here that my friend Holly had given me last year, I believe. It's by Biscotte et Compagnie. And I'm going to probably cast on those socks, but I'm also thinking that this sock yarn may become part of the gnome as well, because there certainly I won't need all of that for a pair of socks. So we'll see. But that's really my main plan. I had first made a whole list of things I wanted to do in December, and I thought, no, I think I'm just going to keep it simple. I got myself a Vatam tea advent, and so I'll have a cup of tea every day and a little bit of knitting, and there'll be lights and candles, and it's just going to be cozy and lovely. So I'll see you next time. If you're still here, hope you'll enjoy the footage of Madrid and Barcelona and Sitges. Oh, we also went to Toledo, and we also went to Escorial. All right, I did a lot. In 2 weeks. So you'll see some footage of that, whatever I feel makes sense to put in there, because there's a lot of it. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
que me ha pasado en mucho tiempo. Tu amor ha despertado entre mis manos caricia nueva. No sé cómo decirte lo mucho que te quiero, porque te amo. Las cosas vuelven a tener sentido. Por haberte conocido, no tengo todo, contigo tengo más de lo que había soñado, contigo quiero hacerme vieja y tú a mi lado, qué suerte tengo, qué fácil es amar, todo el corazón siente nada a la misma vez. Te quiero como la primera vez, fácil es amar, fácil es amar, todo el corazón siente nada a la misma vez, te quiero como la primera vez, fácil es amar. Toda esta gente que hay aquí, ¿quién me dice a mí que la luna no es una mujer? Yo la he visto muda en el mar, tiene una sonrisa que brilla en el agua y su piel morena como una gitana. Reina de la noche en el firmamento, vive enamorada y el sol es su dueño. Yo la he visto a solas con el sol, haciendo el amor.